Alright. Before we get started for real, I'm just gonna do a little warm-up. Are we live? So it would seem. Feeling a bit sleepy today. But I think we slept pretty well, so that's nice. Let me adjust this. Okay. Where were we? Well, we left off on page 25, but I'm gonna go back a little bit. We are reading Small Gods, a one-off novel in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. And my tracking today doesn't seem to want to completely cooperate, so I apologize for that. You can hear my birdies in the other room. Oh, they are returning to us now. Many feel... My goodness. I'm gonna be feeding them after this reading. I am going to be feeding them after this reading. Gosh. I think right about here is okay. Many feel they are called to the priesthood. We're actually on page 21. I might just go from here and keep reading, or we'll see. I might skip ahead back to 25 where we left it. Many feel they are called to the priesthood, but what they really hear is an inner voice saying it's indoor work. Brother, on the other hand, didn't just believe, he really believed. That sort of thing is usually embarrassing when it happens in a God-fearing family. But all Brother had was his grandmother, and she believed too. She was the kind of woman every priest dreads in a congregation. She believed like iron believes in metal. In the Omnian Church, women were allowed in the temple only on sufferance and had to keep absolutely silent and well covered up in their own section behind the pulpit, in case the sight of one half of the human race caused the male members of the congregation to hear voices. How very silly. If Brother's grandmother had been born a man, Omnianism would have found its 8th prophet rather earlier than expected. Unfortunately, it would seem, in the desert nation of Omnia, not only does their religion turn to blood, but they're kind of sexist too. We've told you before. The world of the Discworld, is based much on our own world, and there are, yet, even today, many nations where women barely have the ability to move through life in the way that they deserve to. This, of course, is changing. But yeah, Brother's grandmother, I like her. So Brother grew up, thanks to his grandmother, in the sure and certain knowledge of the great god Om. He grew up knowing that Om's eyes were on him all the time. He could recite every verse in all 7 books of the prophets, and every single precept. He knew all the laws and the songs, especially the laws. The Omnians, after all, were a God-fearing people. They had a great deal to fear. Indeed. Let's see now. Today's a quiet day, I see. Nobody yet here with us on Reality, nobody yet here with us on YouTube, and honestly, I don't mind. Hosting is difficult, especially when I'm feeling like I'm feeling right now. That being said, this little warm-up will help, and should anyone arrive, I'll be very glad to receive them. And if you're watching this in the recording right now, well, that is highly poggers, okay? That's some Giga Chad behavior right there, and I appreciate yeah, that's right, I said it. Uh, that is some Giga Chad behavior right there, and I'm very glad you're watching, and I'd be especially interested to know how you stumbled across this recording, and what got you to keep watching it, right? It's a whole series. This is, today, a week of this. Which is probably part of why my birds are so excited. They're like, oh yay, we're doing it again! I guess. Well, let's continue. As you might recall, we were on page 25 in the middle of a secret meeting between Vorbis and two others, General Freet and Bishop Druna. Yeah. Now, of course, it's a secret meeting, so shh, it's not actually happening. But I think we're going to start from the beginning of that part and just keep going. And if anyone shows up, maybe they'll remember where we were. And if not, sometimes it's nice to read sections again to help it to really solidify in your brain a little bit, right? And you know, I do have to entertain the notion that no one is ever going to see this. No one's here live, not on Reality, not on YouTube. And it's possible that the recording might not receive any views at all. Not any meaningful views. YouTube and Twitch both like to count views even when it's only for a moment. In my opinion, a true view is when you sit and you watch either all or at least most of the recording. But not many people have the patience or inclination for such things. That's okay. You don't have to. I wish you did, though. We need followers like that, because with followers like that, we can increase dramatically the quality of our content. Because if you sit and watch our entire recordings, you can tell us, hey, this is what my experience was like. Here are some things that maybe could have made my experience even better. And then knowing that, we can make your experience even better next time, because you shared that feedback with us. I'll keep trying. The Omnians were indeed a God-fearing people, and they had a great deal to fear, and among those things to fear was the Deacon Vorbis. Vorbis's room was in the upper citadel. I'm just gonna, I know, they're going crazy, aren't they? It's fine. They're just having a good time. They're flying around, talking to each other. This house belongs to them too. So enjoy the sounds of them, okay? And if you don't, well, then you're in the wrong place, I'm sorry to say, because they're not gonna stop. They're a daily part of my life, and I'd like to be a daily part of yours. Why do you think I'm doing this? Anyway, enough of that. Enough of that. I'm just gonna read now, okay? I'm glad you're here. Alright, let's go. I'm glad you're here. Yeah. Vorbis's room was in the upper citadel, which was unusual for a mere deacon. He hadn't asked for it. He seldom had to ask for anything. Destiny has a way of marking her own. He also got visited by some of the most powerful men in the church's hierarchy. Not, of course, the 6 archpriests or the Cenobiarch himself. They weren't that important. They were merely at the top. The people who really run organizations are usually found several levels down, where it's still possible to get things done. People liked to be friends with Vorbis, mainly because of the aforesaid mental field, which suggested to them in the subtlest of ways that they didn't want to be his enemy. 2 of them, and I'll tell you something, actually, quick aside, that's very effective when you're in a competitive game, like Smash Brothers free-for-alls. If you make your presence overbearing, people will leave you alone. However, as is the case both in Smash and I would imagine here with our dear Deacon Vorbis, as soon as they perceive you to be in a disadvantage, they're gonna attack. And I have a feeling that Vorbis has made a lot of enemies along the way. And I have a feeling we might see what comes of that. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. We did read this before, but that was a long time ago. Where did they go? Alright. I told you enough of that, right? Let's get back to it. I really am. I'm grateful you're here. I just wanted to say that yesterday and I didn't get to it. People like to be friends with Vorbis, mainly because of the aforesaid mental field, which suggested to them in the subtlest of ways that they did not want to be his enemy. 2 of those people were sitting down with him right now. They were General Yam Freet, who, whatever the official records might suggest, was indeed the man who ran most of the Divine Legion, and Bishop Druna, secretary to the Congress of Yams. People might not think that was much of a position of power, but then they'd never been minutes secretary to a meeting of slightly deaf old men. Neither man, of course, was in fact there. They were not talking to Vorbis. It was one of those kinds of meetings. Lots of people didn't talk to Vorbis, and went out of their way to not have meetings with him. Some of the abbots from the distant monasteries had recently been summoned to the citadel, traveling secretly for up to a week across torturous terrain, just so they definitely wouldn't join the shadowy figures visiting Vorbis's room. In the last few months, I almost said the last few days. Well, yes, also the last few days, but in the last few months, Vorbis had apparently had about as many visitors as the Man in the Iron Mask. Nor were, of course, they actually talking. But if they had been there, if they had been having a conversation, it would have gone something like this. And we reach now the bottom of page 23, moving back to where we were on page 24. "And now," said Vorbis, "the matter of Ephebe." Yeah, I think Denki's listening. Yeah. Bishop Druna shrugged, or would have done, of course, if he had been there, which he wasn't, so he couldn't. "Of no consequence, they say, no threat." The 2 men looked at Vorbis, a man who never raised his voice. It was very hard to tell what Vorbis was thinking, often even after he had told you. "Really? Is this what we've come to?" he said. "No threat? After what they did to poor Brother Murdoch? The insults to Ohm? This must not pass. What is proposed to be done?" "No more fighting," said Freet. "They fight like madmen. No, we've lost too many already." "They have strong gods," said Druna. "They have better bows," said Freet. "There is no god but Ohm," said Vorbis. "What the Ephebians believe they worship are nothing but jinns and demons. If it can be called worship. If it can be called worship. Have you seen this? Oh, hello. I wonder who that might be. Welcome." We're back where we were with the secret meeting. Welcome. Vorbis pushed forward a scroll of paper. "What is it?" said Freet cautiously. "A lie. A history that does not exist and never existed. The things," Vorbis hesitated, trying to remember a word that had long since fallen into disuse. Ah, yes, I remember this. "Like the tales told to children who are too young, words for people to say, Oh, a play," said Freet. Vorbis's gaze nailed him to the wall. "You know of these things?" When I traveled in Klatch once," Freet stuttered. He visibly pulled himself together. He had commanded 100,000 men in battle. He didn't deserve this. And we come now to the bottom of page 24. He found he didn't dare look at Vorbis's expression. They, dance dances, he said limply, on their holy days, and we are now at 25. The women have bells on their... where indeed are those bells? And sing songs, all about the early days of the worlds, when the gods... He faded. It was disgusting, he said. He clicked his knuckles, a habit of his whenever he was worried. This one has their gods in it, said Vorbis. Men in masks. Glad you're here. Can you believe that? They have a god of wine, a drunken old man, and people say Ephebe is no threat. And this... He tossed another, thicker scroll on the table. I wonder what this is now, huh? Oh, there we are. This is far worse, for while they worship false gods in error, their error is in their choice of gods, not in their worship. But this... Druna gave it a cautious examination. I believe there are other copies, even in the Citadel, said Vorbis. This one belonged to Sasho. I believe you recommended him to my service for Eat. Aha. Remember this? Hello. I suspected that might be you over there. I actually couldn't see your face just yet. But I see you. My birds seem to have flown away into the kitchen. I hope that they're behaving in there. It's not terribly dangerous in there, but I will have to check on them. So let's continue a little bit. Sasho. Remember Sasho? Awa. This particular thicker scroll, Vorbis observed, belonged to Sasho, his former secretary. I believe, continued Vorbis, you, for Eat, recommended him to my service? He always struck me as an intelligent and keen young man, said the general, as we begin now to finally move ahead. But disloyal, said Vorbis, and now receiving his just reward. It is only to be regretted that he has not been induced to give us the names of his fellow heretics. For Eat fought against the sudden rush of relief. His eyes met those of Vorbis. Relief? Interesting. Aha. Interesting. Do you know that suggests that Eat may in fact be one of those heretics that Sasho worked with? Lucky for Eat that Sasho, even under threat of pain and death, is keeping his mouth shut. The turtle moves. Druna broke the silence. Die Kolonien Mobile, he said aloud. The turtle moves. What does that mean? Oh, I guess we're about to find out what that actually means, huh? Even telling you, warned Vorbis, could put your soul at risk of 1,000 years in hell. Vorbis's eyes had not left Eat, who was now staring fixedly at the wall. I think it is a risk we might carefully take, said Druna. Vorbis shrugged. The writer claims that the world travels through the void on the back of 4 huge elephants, he said. Interesting. The entire world traveling on the back of 4 huge elephants? Well, where's the turtle, first of all, and what the heck? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Druna's mouth dropped open. Yeah, he's in disbelief too. On the back? He said. It is claimed, said Vorbis, still watching Eat. What do they stand on? The writer says, Vorbis continued, they stand on the shell of an enormous turtle. Druna grinned nervously. And what does that stand on? He said. I see no point in speculating as to what it stands on, snapped Vorbis, since it does not exist. Aha. And there you have it. The turtle moves. But according to Deacon Vorbis, and perhaps by extension the great god Om, there is no such turtle. There are no such 4 elephants on the back of that aforesaid turtle. Let's continue. I see no point in speculating as to what it stands on, snapped Vorbis, since it does not exist. Of course, said Druna quickly. It was only idle curiosity. Most curiosity is, said Vorbis. It leads the mind into speculative ways, yet the man who wrote this walks around free in Ephebe now. Druna glanced at the scroll. He says here he went on a ship that sailed to an island on the edge, and he looked over and... Lies, said Vorbis evenly. Can we think about that a little bit? The Discworld is, in fact, a flat world. Unlike our own, though some would argue that our world is flat too. I'd like to know what you think of that, right? But here, the Discworld is almost definitely actually flat, and there is almost definitely actually an edge over which you can peer and see down below the 4 elephants and the 1 very giant turtle. Or so it is said. And Druna, reading the scroll, noticed that it said right there that the writer went on a ship that sailed to an island on the edge and looked over. But Vorbis evenly said lies. And it would make no difference even if they were not lies. Truth lies within, not without. In the words of the great god Om, as delivered through his chosen prophets, our eyes may deceive us, but our God never will. But... Vorbis looked at Freet. The general was sweating. Yes, he said. Well, Ephebe, a place where madmen have mad ideas. Everyone knows that. Maybe the wisest course is leave them to stew in their folly. Vorbis shook his head. Unfortunately, wild and unstable ideas have a disturbing tendency to move around and take hold. Yeah. Like VTubers, right? Back in, I don't know, what was it, the year 2015, can you imagine a world where there's just thousands and thousands of VTubers everywhere, all over the place? Here we are. Hi. Here we are. We exist. Freet had to admit that this was true. He knew from experience that true and obvious ideas, such as the ineffable wisdom, moving now to page 27, true and obvious ideas such as the ineffable wisdom and judgment of the great god Om seemed so obscure to many people that you actually had to kill them before they saw the error of their ways, whereas dangerous and nebulous and wrong-headed notions often had such an attraction for some people that they would, he rubbed a scar thoughtfully, hide up in the mountains and throw rocks at you until you starved them out. Oh, good. Such people would prefer to die rather than see sense of the great god Om. Freet had seen sense at an early age. He'd seen it was sense not to die. Interesting. What do you propose? He said. The council want to parley with Ephebe, said Druna. You know, I have to organize a deputation to leave tomorrow. How many soldiers? Said Vorbis. A bodyguard only. We have been guaranteed safe passage after all, said Freet. Really glad you're here. I hope you're enjoying this little experience. We have been guaranteed safe passage, said Vorbis. It sounded like a lengthy curse. And once inside? Freet wanted to say, I've spoken to the commander of the Ephebian garrison, and I think he is a man of honor, although of course he is indeed a despicable infidel and lower than the worms. but it was not the kind of thing he felt it wise to say to Vorbis. He substituted, "We shall be on our guard." "Can we surprise them?" Freet hesitated. "We?" he said. "I shall lead the party," said Vorbis. There was the briefest exchange of glances between himself and the secretary. "I would like to be away from the Citadel for a while, a change of air. Besides, we should not let the Ephebians think they merit the attentions of a superior member of the church. I was just musing as to the possibilities, should we be provoked." And we continue now to page 28, making some lovely progress today. For each nervous click was like a whip crack. "We have given them our word." "There is no truce with unbelievers," said Vorbis sternly. "But there are practical considerations," said Freet, as sharply as he dared. "The palace of Ephebe is a labyrinth, I know. There are traps. No one gets in without a guide." "How does the guide get in?" said Vorbis. "I assume he guides himself," said the general. "In my experience," replied Vorbis, "there is always another way. Into everything there is always another way, which the god will show in his own good time. We can be assured of that." "Certainly," said Druna. "Matters would be easier if there was a lack of stability in Ephebe. It does indeed harbor certain elements. And," continued Vorbis, "it will be the gateway to the whole of the Turnwise coast." "Well, the Gel, and then Tsort." "Ah, Gel." There's a town, what am I saying? Not a town, not a city, but a whole nation, called, if I remember correctly, Jelly. It's not Jelly Baby, is it? I think it's actually named after the jelly beans. There's a lot of silly places here in the Discworld. And in fact, that is another nation that, yes, exactly. I love it. There is another story that takes place in Gel. It's a very interesting story. And Gel, I believe, is based in large part on modern notions of ancient Egypt. It's very fun. And Tsort, as compared to Ephebe, I think Tsort is more a bit like Sparta, while Ephebe is a bit more like Athens. Yeah. Druna tried to avoid seeing Freet's expression in response to what Vorbis said about Gel and Tsort. "It is our duty," said Vorbis, "our holy duty. We must not forget poor brother Murdoch. He was unarmed and alone. And it looks like we'll next be returning to Brother, seeking Brother Nehumrod, presumably to let him know about his encounter with the tortoise claiming to be the great god Om himself. Here on page 28. So I'm excited about that. What about you, huh? This is fun. This is fun. We're here at the end for today. But I feel pretty good about how it went. And I'm sad to say you're the only one who joined me today. But I'm also not at all sad to say it, actually, because you joined me today. And that's very special for me. So I'm gonna hop up here. I'm gonna hop up. Yeah. Because as you know, I can stand. Wow. There we are. I want to thank you so very much for joining me today. It's so nice to have you here. How very fitting. I love it. Thank you. Oh, there it is. Do you see? It's right, it's just behind my butt. It just went behind my butt. And I think that's where it's gonna live now. Thank you for giving me that butt Sakura petal. Are you enjoying the story so far? Maybe you feel it's a little hard to follow. It's okay. If you want to, you can always go back and watch the other recordings again. Or if you're like, hey wait, Violet, what exactly is going on? I'm kind of confused. Just tell me. And we can take a moment to recap. Because I want to make sure that your experience is a good one. I was saying that earlier in the stream before anyone had even arrived. Knowing what your experience is helps ensure that your future experiences here with us, Sai Gai Vai, are even better. So, you don't mind it. Well, that's good. I don't mind you being here at all. You're setting an example, you know. You're setting an example of what it means to be a Sai Gai Vai follower. How do you feel about that, huh? You join so many of our streams, you participate in so much of our content. You show everyone what it's like to chat with us. You show everyone what it's like to join us and maybe even have a good time with us. And in doing that, maybe you encourage others to want to do the same. And that's what I'd like. Have a nice little community here. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love it. Wait. Oh, I wanted to end the stream on that. On YouTube, anyway. Here. If you send another one of those lovely little stickers, that'll be the last thing they see on YouTube, okay? And then we'll wrap up here on Reality in just a moment. But before we do that, if you... Oh, well, that's a good one. I like that. There we go.